You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYBC.
WCYTV.
Here on the Daily Signal.
Hey, good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. It's good to be with you, and I hope you got a good night's sleep last night, because I didn't. Because Mike Johnson announced that after the Senate had passed the big, beautiful bill with a bunch of amendments that the House probably wasn't going to like, you heard rumblings, grumblings, mumblings from different members of the House that essentially predicted this wasn't going to make the 4th of July deadline. It was going to be next week, maybe 2 weeks away. And there were only a few of us out there, yours truly included, who landed on the idea that it would in fact be done by the 4th of July. Because I know a little something about Speaker Mike Johnson from Louisiana. Regardless of what you think about the guy personally, on personal political view, whatever, is things that you wish he would have done or wish he wouldn't have done. When it comes to managing that very, very, very slim majority that Republicans have in the House, made slimmer by individuals that vote no on basically everything, it just so happens that you get pretty good at managing things. Mike Johnson is one of those individuals that has that natural talent. So we went into last night with him saying to Fox News, I think we're going to be able to get it done tonight. And that was the moment that I realized that I was doomed. And so I stayed up until the ungodly time of 4:30 in the morning watching Speaker Johnson pull off an insane gambit. Essentially what he pulled off was a rules procedural vote. They were going to get everything prepped to go, and this is what this looked like at the very beginning of the evening. This clip's over from the Daily Caller News Foundation, who sent this over to us.
Jeffries will stop speaking.
Do you have a sense of how long he's going to go?
I don't know what he has in mind. He may be trying to go for the record. I think Kevin McCarthy holds the record, and it's an utter waste of everyone's time. But, that's part of the system here.
How many votes do you think he might lose on this final vote?
Maybe one or two, but we'll have the votes, and we'll get this. We'll land this plane before July 4th, as I told you all we would do.
Are you guys trying to still win over Brian?
So Johnson gets out and announces, all right, I think we're going to do it. And then, Hakeem Jeffries is going to whine for an hour, a couple hours or so, and then we'll move right along. And then something very interesting happened. You had a couple of members immediately come out and flip their vote in the procedure vote to no. One of these was Representative Victoria Spartz of Indiana's 5th. One of these is Representative Keith Self of Texas, from Texas 3rd Congressional, who we just had on the show earlier this week. And I was really surprised because Keith said he was going to vote for the bill. Excuse me, Representative Self. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the office here. Then you had Representative Spartz also in a tweet earlier that day say that she didn't like some things that were in the bill, but either we could sit around and futz over this for another month and have the markets go up and down and essentially just to get a worse product, or they could just get the bill passed, which I got to tell you was a pretty accurate take. So why did she flip no? And then we had Representative Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania flip no. Of course, Massey was no. And all of a sudden, you didn't have the votes that were needed. And there was this weird non-voting block. And it stayed that way for, through 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10, 11, 12, 1, 2 in the morning. And then right at about 3 in the morning, the rest of the country started to get word that they were actually going to bring the procedural vote through. Now, I'm going to be very upfront with you guys. I knew that this was coming. And I'm not saying that I knew that this was coming because I am some master of strategic analysis. No, I talked to some congressional staffers. So I have the genuine pleasure of being in contact with a couple of people on Representative Spart's staff, on Representative Self's staff, on a couple of other places around the Hill because of the excellent work, for example, that the Daily Signal team does. And in talking with them, I learned very quickly that Spartz was planning on flipping this vote at 9 or 10 p.m. So why not go ahead and just get this done right at the beginning of the evening? Why not just flip the votes? We all go home, because there might be an individual out there who thinks that they can derail the entire thing. If Spartz is going to flip to yes and Self is going to vote yes, then they might try to hold something up so they can get something out. But if Representative Self and Representative Spartz kind of hold on for a little bit, then by the end of the evening, you essentially can create kind of a peer pressure. All right, we're all going to flip yes and agree, okay? And then that's what happened. Even Thomas Massey ended up flipping yes on the procedural vote to just bring it to an end. And the only representative that was left that did not vote in favor on the Republican side of the aisle towards the procedure vote of bringing it to a full debate and final vote on the big, beautiful bill was Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania. It is a masterwork of a political move. Now, speaking of move, I should say the Democrats were not a fan of this at all. They were very, very, very upset, and they have no power whatsoever because the Democrats have thrown away any kind of social credit that they have with the American people. They've thrown away any kind of procedural power that they have, whittling away various minority powers in the House and the Senate over the last couple of decades. Again, lest I play the Mitch McConnell clip once again.
Say to my friends on the other side of the aisle, you'll regret this, and you may regret it a lot sooner than you think.
When the Democrats tossed away a bunch of norms that prevented the minority at the time, during the Obama administration, the Republicans, from doing things that kept the Democrats from advancing radical agendas, at the time, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell reminded Harry Reid, you're going to regret this. And the Democrats just said, no, we won't. And they just nuclear optioned their way through everything. Now here you have the Republicans watching as the Democrats sit impotent, some in more ways than other, to do anything regarding this bill. So what did they resort to? Mooing. I'm not joking. Now, the other night, I said, I think I said on the air, was it moo cow? I said, yeah. So, and I was teased for that a bit because, you know, young dad that say moo cow sometimes instead of just a cow. I was not expecting the Democrat Congress people to take that up as some kind of a challenge. In the middle of the night, just because they were mad that they were sitting there because Johnson did not adjourn Congress, which, by the way, if you think that upsets Americans, it's about time that Congress works some late hours instead of going on vacations and beach trips, as some Democrats were complaining. So here's the Democrats in their bold strategy of lowing like a herd of cattle. Now, for those of you out there perhaps not as auditorially astute, we transitioned from the video of the Democrats in the House mooing to a video of cows mooing. I know, sounds very similar, kind of hard to miss there. So if you have a really trained ear, perhaps you picked up on that. It didn't just stop there, because after the Republicans did get the particular bill through, there was a lot of celebration. There was a lot of astoundment, astoundosity. I was astounded because I was uploading the top news in 10 at 3:30 in the morning. They got the vote through, and I had to stop, go back, re-record the announcement, and then I promptly went and stuck my head in the oven. So in the meantime, Speaker Johnson took a very well-deserved victory lap.
We have an hour scheduled for debate, and depends on how long the Democrat leader's magic minute goes, but I suspect it won't drag on long.
Oh, how wrong he was. It was the first thing that Mike Johnson was wrong about. Because where there was an hour scheduled for debate, Hakeem Jeffries decided to filibuster. Now, it's a little ironic that Hakeem Jeffries is filibustering anything, because in 2021, Hakeem Jeffries said that filibustering, the idea of talking to try to prevent the bill from moving forward, Hakeem Jeffries said that was a vestige of Jim Crow days. Apparently he's got no problem with that anymore. He does have a lot of problems everywhere else. So Hakeem Jeffries begins by threatening Republicans with a good time, by saying that if this horrible bill goes through, ICE will be supercharged.
Speaker, that's not what this country should be all about. Manu wasn't the only one. The only American citizen who's been targeted by the deportation machine, a deportation machine that will be unleashed on steroids by this one big ugly bill.
And Republicans collectively went, promise? Do you promise? It's going to unleash anti-illegal immigration policies and it's going to boost federal agents to uphold the law. AOC tried the same thing. She had an actual freak out today over on Blue Sky, and we'll get to that. Sorry, radio crew, we're going to send you over to commercial land, continue on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Now, that was actually the most serious moment. Believe it or not, Hakeem Jeffries spoke for, what was it? I think it was over 8 hours. How long did he speak?
Hakeem Jeffries hit 8 hours, 44 minutes, and 24 seconds.
Which is a new record, right? A new record for speaking on the House floor?
It did break the record, yes.
Great. So now you have Cory Booker in the Senate, Democrat, and you have Hakeem Jeffries in the House, Democrat, who have set a new record for whining about losing, which is incredible. Well, I really will give props to President Trump. Only Trump could drive people so insane on the left that they set records for whining in both the House and the Senate. That's pretty wild. But it wasn't all, doom and gloom and fear-mongering. In fact, Hakeem Jeffries, got a little in touch with his musical side here. I was excited about some of his points.
I got so many stories, I feel like I'm in a hip-hop studio right now.
Word up. I, too, tell so many stories, I feel as though I'm in the hip-hop studio, my fellow youths. I love it. Oh, my goodness. That also... there were, for those who are listening or not watching online, there's a group of Democrats behind him that are supposed to be clapping and cheering, and this is getting late into the hours of the night, and the average age of Congress is like 215. So a couple of representatives got a little sleepy. For example, Representative Marcy Kaptur of Ohio, and so they shake her.
When you launch an all-out
they shake
assault
her awake. Here
on the
she goes.
health care of the American people. When you effectively in Medicaid,
The top
as
right
we know
there.
it,
So they start to boot her out.
gut
Sorry, you're
parts
not
of
allowed
the
to go to
Affordable
sleep.
Care Act.
And they put in Representative
essentially
Sarah McBride,
are doing
who's, probably going to get out there and scream that he thinks we're all going to die some more. So I love it. Every bit of this was hilarious. Finally, Hakeem did yield, and the cheering from the House on the Democrats and Republicans was exuberant, but not exactly for the same reason. And that's what makes this perhaps the most sweet of all.
press on for democracy. We're going to press on until victory is won.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a hip-hop studio.
I yield back.
Everybody's cheering, woo, and all these articles are coming out. Wow, it's so amazing. He spoke for over 8 hours. It's incredible. There's a meme of an individual, a Slavic-looking kind of dude, who is like drinking champagne and celebrating, and then the camera zooms out, and he's not in first or second place. He's in like 17th place. That is exactly what this was like. The Democrats were like, yeah, we did it. It's like, what did you do? You did nothing. Nothing at all. And then Speaker Mike Johnson was yielded a minute and took an actual victory lap that, didn't take all day.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to our great Speaker of the House, Mr. Mike Johnson.
Steve Scalise is like, ah!
I thank the gentleman from Missouri. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So he gets out from the podium. He gets out this binder and kind of slaps it on the desk, or on the dais, I should say. This is a reference that the day before, one of the Democrats in the House...
I don't know what they're going to be successful in doing, but I brought with me...
slapped around a big binder. It's fantastic. All right, looks like we have to bring the radio crew back from commercial in a minute, so we'll keep Speaker Johnson moving here.
Ronald Reagan said one time that no speech should be longer than 20 minutes, and unlike the Democrat leader, I'm going to honor my colleagues' time and be a little more brief than that, all right? I just want to say something that many of us learned when we were children. We were taught, it takes a lot longer to build a lie than to tell the simple truth.
We'll be back in just a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Now, since this lovely morning, has there been a lot of news? No, actually, there has not. And the reason that there has not been a lot of news is because all of the congressmen and women went to bed. Visions of your tax dollars dancing in their heads. And this allowed all of the influencers who slept while a lot of the analysts and pundits and people who actually look at this stuff for a living and are serious about it, while we were all looking at this stuff, they were all asleep. And so this morning, we all went to sleep until, as close to noon as we could manage, and the influencers woke up. And when the influencers arose from their self-obsessed beds, they got to work talking about how in danger the entire country is, that it's over, that we need to get out there and protest. Only, I'm going to be honest with you, some of the conversations here, some of the warnings are a little bit rough here. Here's James Carville, Democrat strategist, and a little worse for wear.
People tell you they're worried about the midterms, and you say you should be because there's a good chance that Trump will try to pull something. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I don't know. What I think is going to happen is Virginia and New Jersey are going to be Democratic blowouts. And I think he's going to read the election. By the way, there are more people that live in Virginia and New Jersey than live in New York City. And we ought to talk also, we talk about things that happen in New York City. We should talk about we got Sterling candidates also in Virginia and New Jersey.
Now, by the way, as a pundit, it's a very bad sign when you begin your comments by sounding like Porky the Pig trying to read the phone book. That's a rough start to any pundit speech, but what he gets to finally in his roundabout way, he does eventually find his way to a point that I'm a little shocked to hear James Carville suggesting, not because it's uncharacteristic for him, but because he's made this exact promise at least 13 times in the last 10 years.
And I think he's going to see this big, beautiful bill is about 25 points underwater. It's going to be 30 points underwater. He's going to see a massive defeat coming, and he's going to try to do anything he can to extricate himself from that defeat. And I would not put it at all past him to try to call martial law or declare that there's some kind of national emergency in the country or anything like that, because the hoof prints are coming. You can hear them.
The hoof prints. The hoof prints are coming. Ah, yes, I can hear the fingerprints on the windowsill.
And they're going to get a shellacking in November of 2026.
Bill O'Reilly, do you...
I love that, by the way. He's going to call martial law because the big, beautiful bill is 25 points under. That's not true. That is invariably not the case. Certain elements of the bill are unpopular with a lot of people from around the country because it is a coalition bill. Right now you have a lot of coalitions and a lot of conspiracies. But before we actually have an adult conversation between you, me, and Dupree about the genuine nature of a coalition, we're going to go through some of the weirder conspiracies. So Los Angeles we haven't talked about in a while, and they're still very angry out there that they're no longer being allowed to burn things down. So they're going to get out there and they're going to protest. And remember how one of the big warnings about this big, beautiful bill is that it's going to cut welfare for all of these people because, there are work requirements. How could you suggest that there are people just mooching off of a system because they don't have jobs? Well,
Trump is so dumb for pissing off LA because we don't have jobs. None of us have jobs. We have COVID level amounts of free time to protest, my dude. He's so dumb.
Ah, yes, he's so dumb. He's so dumb. You're going to get out there and protest. Oh, no. Oh, man, these protesters. So, of course, setting aside the fact that you just admitted none of you fools have jobs. So you want to be on welfare and mooching off of the hard work of other Americans. Again, even the work requirements on the Democrat side have high approval ratings, especially with the Rust Belt Democrats in the swing states that Democrats desperately need to pull in the midterms. Right now, they are underwater in almost every single district in the swing states. Almost every single district. That is a mucho big problem, as they say in Mexico City. Now, what's going on at the protests? Well, we got to get the men involved. And I say men very loosely because they're upping their strategy. It's just a really disturbing and pathetic strategy.
Hello, it's the master. The reason I have red lipstick on is because I'm at the demonstration in traffic.
Yeah, I'll say. The reason that this man has lipstick on is because he's at the demonstration. Accurate. He does claim to have a reason, but if you drove by a left-leaning pride parade or no kings protest or whatever they're calling them this, time of the year, if you see a dude with lipstick on, you're like, yeah, that's about right.
City. There are thousands of us. And red lipstick, I was informed last night by my friend Jen, was a form of resistance when Hitler was trying to take over the world.
There it is.
He didn't like women wearing red lipstick. So I've decided...
As a grown man with a white goatee...
Red lipstick. Everybody put on red lipstick.
Hey guys, it's the master. I thought that Hitler's bad. He doesn't like lipstick, so I'm gonna wear lipstick. Yes, you have owned me. I, the conservative from Indiana, am sufficiently owned by the grown man wearing red lipstick at a Democrat protest. How could I have seen this coming? Oh, that I had spent my years more wisely so that I could withstand the assault of grown men trying to be taken seriously in red lipstick.
To show resistance against you-know-who.
Oh, Voldemort. Yes. Good. The Harry Potter universe is saved. We do have a returning hero, by the way. Some of you who have watched the show for a while may remember Letterwoman. Letterwoman, or Barbara, as is her real name, is this lady who has been an activist over on the left for a while. And she was the one who sent letters to the Supreme Court. Now, this wasn't regarding any particular case. You may remember that Letter Lady was just going to get out there and throw some letters that said 4 words. Here's a little flashback.
Here we go. One just didn't seem to be enough. So I've got 6 letters to SCOTUS.
Wow.
Saying 4 words. Stop Trump. Save America. Here they go.
Here they go. Like she's launching howitzer shells. And then she tells everyone else to buy stamps and send letters. She's back. Now, I say she's back. She's retired from social media several times, like all of these goobers have. Again, all of the individuals who are semi-popular in these circles, hey, it's Bobby Joe out here yelling at a mailbox. Like, look, they've all quit social media like 5 or 6 times. I do love when they always come crawling back like George Costanza, trying to unquit Monday morning. But she is back, and now she's extra mad. She's going to use her big adult swears on all of us.
Well, you just couldn't call, could you, Magus? You just couldn't help out a few thousand or million people.
A few dozen or million or thousand or maybe 3 at my local Piggly Wiggly is standing there taking up the self-checkout line.
Who are going to go hungry and are going to live in the fucking streets. Thank.
What's wrong with the streets? Hey, it's starting to sound like a hip-hop studio in here.
Thanks, MAGA. Thanks a whole hell of a lot. Because most of the goddamn people live in your fucking states.
The people living in my states, first of all, that's not true. Most illegal immigrants do not live in my states who have lost some Medicaid benefits. Number 2, I would like to just remind each and everyone out there that on the demographic charts, consistently, Christians and conservatives are the 2 groups, depending on what demographic categorization you're using, most likely to give personal charity, not just including tithing, just charity in general. So, again, lecturing conservatives or Republicans about, oh, you guys are just really mean. Thanks a whole hell of a lot. Okay, great. Please do touch grass. Radio crew, we'll see you in just a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Now, Nancy Pelosi's trying the same thing, but this time we're getting out abortion again because, oh yeah, you're gonna get them. Good luck.
In the Gospel of Matthew, it says, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was hungry.
Yes.
He says that. But it also says to those who are being shunted aside, when I was hungry, you didn't feed me. When I was homeless, you didn't take me in.
Yes.
When I was in prison, you didn't visit me.
Yes.
When I was naked, you didn't clothe me.
Yes.
It also says the reverse. And
Yes.
that's what when I see what they're doing on the floor, I think it's a complete opposite.
Okay, I'm sorry. I actually had to get up and go pick up the Bible here because I happen to have a copy of the Good Word as the Daily Signal's resident Bible-thumping Baptist. In Matthew chapter 25, verse 31, the separation of the sheep and goats, it says nothing about using the government to rip resources away from one person and then asking the government to give those resources to someone else. That's not charity. That is not at all charity. But even if it were, even if Christ were talking about voting for benefits to give to someone else, I gotta tell you, just between you, me, and the trees, nowhere in here does it approve of abortion ever. And again, in the book of Jeremiah, the Bible says explicitly, again, and the reason I bring this up, normally I don't bring up like scriptural arguments. If you are going to come to the streets near us and use a theological argument against Christians, then prepare to be hit with a theological response. If you're going to claim the authority of Scripture, then when someone responds with Scripture, you know, that is in fact how that goes. In the book of Jeremiah, the word of God indicates very clearly that God knows people before they are born. It says, before you were in the womb, I knew you. Several other passages in Scripture indicate very clearly that people are people essentially after conception. After you are your own individual unique DNA, that is when God is knitting you together. Again, that's just, if you're going to say that the Bible approves abortion, it does not. No, know that when someone quotes the Scripture back, that is in fact addressing the argument on that particular level. Now, there's a lot of scientific arguments otherwise. Lecturing people on the right for being really big, stinky, mean, horrible, terrible people, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. Now, Olivia Juliana, or whatever, the Democrats' choice to reach young men, who looks like J.B. Pritzker in a wig, she has come out and said that Hillary Clinton was not mean enough when she called y'all a bunch of deplorables. Again, best of luck to you. Best of luck to you. You have already cut off half the country as extreme MAGA, homophobic, racist, whatever, and then you expect to lecture them, and they're going to what? Listen to you? Sit down and, oh yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you think I'm Satan, but, well, after all, we are sitting down and you are speaking in a calm tone of voice, and you won't kill me if I give you everything that you want, so it's just not going to work. Tim Burchett is an excellent example of this. Representative from Tennessee on CNN, just not taking any of it.
Is very clear about how many people are going to be kicked off of health care until you were against the CBO.
No, ma'am. You listen. If you want to do the editorial, just go ahead, and you don't need me on here. But the
These
CBO,
are facts, sir. I don't have to editorialize.
Scores. I would like to see what the economic output of every bill. You as a taxpayer should want that too. And the CBO is the only organization we have. If I could allow a private accounting firm to do it, I would much rather that happen. But the reality is it would have to be the CBO. And what do you have against knowing how much each bill is spent?
I love it. Again, the lack of concern that Republicans have for now those who lecture them consistently is truly fantastic. We'll be back in a second for just a bit of mail time. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back. Let's talk just very, very briefly here. Oh, wait, got the wrong Chiron up. There we go. It's good to be with you because at the end of this beautiful week here, at least for our broadcast coverage, we will not be back with you on the 4th of July tomorrow. There are a couple of great comments that have swung right on through. And I'm very, very happy when we get not just interested questions or things that are sent into the show for kind of a viewership segment that are genuine questions. I really do enjoy the insults. I do. Because you would be amazed how often those who send in very angry emails don't spell check. It's a wonderful thing. And when I see the Democrats losing their ever-loving minds about fascism and, there's going to be martial law and then all of the poor people are going to die and then they're not going to wipe our butts and clean our tables anymore. They're getting rid of all of the slaves. Every time I hear that, I'm a little sad. Why am I not also getting some of this outrage? I enjoy it. It keeps my hair less gray. So we do have a couple of those here this week. Now, to send in mail time questions, you just send them in either over at TonyKinnett.com, throw it in the chat, over in the Discord. We love to have those. So, that all said, let's dig in here. This question is over from David Mescura. Tony, I would like to know why the FCC has not revoked the news licenses of legacy media outlets yet. Can anyone answer why this is not in process? Other media outlets could use them. Okay, so the FCC is in charge of what's called spectrum. So here on the radio side of things, Allison, say hello to the lovely people on the radio side of things.
Hello, hello.
That's the radio side. So we have radio syndication partners all around the country. She's going to get mad at me later for just asking her to come on and say hello. Anywho, we have radio spectrum. That is public airwave that I essentially have to follow certain rules for participating in something that everyone can access at any time very, very easily. And then the same over on the TV airwaves side of things. This is where you hear the affiliate station things that are often owned by ABC or CBS or Nexstar, who owns a lot of stations like the Fox stations. The Fox stations aren't owned like by Fox News. Those are owned by other private companies. And you have to pay very close attention to some of the rules. So we have to fit in certain commercial time limits, for example. There are certain words that we can't say. Cable news does not fall under that. Most legacy media outlets, whether they be online publications or major media outlets, only really have to follow two rules. No defamation, no libel. And then, no inciting violence, but that's really supposed to be for everyone. Other than that, there is no license to be a media outlet. So like when we founded the Chalkboard Review, which was an education publication that I used to run, we didn't have to apply for some kind of a license. That's usually reserved for countries where they take all of your money and give it to no one. So the FCC situation, though, CBS did in fact just settle with Donald Trump over a situation regarding Kamala Harris, who gave her all of this loving and kind treatment and then essentially told the president to pound sand. Now, the interesting thing about this particular case is that they settled before discovery occurred. Discovery is the process in any kind of a lawsuit where the lawyers look through all of your emails regarding something in particular, or all of your communications in general. And it's very telling that media outlets that have been sued have tried very, very, very hard not to be in the crosshairs of a discovery situation. Because you find out quite consistently that there's a lot of disdain for the average American in these legacy media outlets. So to answer the question, why doesn't the FCC just revoke news licenses? There is a process of going through fines and lawsuits and then talking about a licensure revocation. It's not as simple as an economic corporate decision. There's a little bit more spaghetti bowl to it. BG, Tony, can you define woman for us? Absolutely. A woman is an individual who is able to reproduce via female sexual organs, just like every other female in the mammal category. So you can assert this a couple of different ways. We can talk about the number of chromosomes, but really more important is the placement of chromosomes. It's the 13th and the 14th chromosome, I believe, that's regarding sex and gender, isn't it? The 13th and the 14th? Yeah, thereabouts. And those specific placements of those particular chromosomes define what a male and a woman are. This is exemplified or expressed, we would say, in the science community in a number of ways, not just what private parts you have, what amount of hormones you have and when they are expressed and received, how your body processes those hormones, your skeletal structure, your muscle structure, the way that your nervous system interacts with the peripheral and the central nervous system. Essentially, you are very, very, very different from the opposite sex. And even an individual who is intersex or has a genetic abnormality, which is less than 1% of all people on this earth, less than 1%, they almost always, and when I say almost always, I mean 99.999 repeating, express to one sex or the other, meaning that you're going to see either hormones that follow along what men show or hormones that follow along what women show. So those things said, was I right in that guess on the 13th? It's been a while since I've taught middle school biology on that specific thing.
Issues with the 13th and 14th chromosomes may lead to infertility both in men and female.
Presto. Awesome. Next question. Let's see. Here's a question. This is from Terry Miller. If half of the Biden stuff that was signed was illegitimate, Is Ketanji Brown Jackson a valid Supreme Court justice? No. The answer is no. But the problem is you have to assert at a specific time that Joe Biden, the answer is no, but with an asterisk. And this is where you really get into an unprecedented situation. If Biden was the guy that gave the order for the auto pen to sign it, it's legally binding because it's the president who is issuing the order. So if Biden signed the particular confirmation, then yeah, she's actually a real member of the Supreme Court, which I believe that wasn't signed via auto pen. I believe he signed that one by hand. So the real issue is that in the last 6 months, maybe more so the last 18 months, depending on who you talk to over on the Oversight Project, who's looking through all of these documents currently. Mike Howell's team is excellent, by the way, on this. We don't know when Biden stopped ordering that things be signed. So, for example, if you had a president that didn't have arms and he couldn't sign something physically, could he ask someone else or order someone to sign it? In the same way that if I had my hand broken and I couldn't sign something, could I ask my wife to sign something for me? Yes, legally that is allowed. So when Biden stopped ordering things to be signed directly, things were just being signed in his name, as Speaker Johnson indicates, when Joe Biden signed an executive order banning liquid natural gas exports from Louisiana, and then Biden didn't remember at all doing that. That is where you really bring in some significant questions on that. Now, while a legally valid justice, she's not a mentally valid justice. She's not at all qualified in the terms of understanding constitutional rationale. So even if I have been a chef at a very fancy restaurant and I come to cook for you and I start trying to use a butter knife to cut bread, or I, start trying to use a fork to eat soup, you're going to have some concerns about my qualifications as a chef, even though I've had the right positions. That's essentially what Ketanji Brown Jackson's problem is regarding the Supreme Court. So that said, let's move on to the next question. There are some really, really good ones this week. So this is from Del Fix Specials, and I've been thinking about this when asking, what is my favorite book on the bookshelves behind us over here on the set? The answer to that question, after they narrowed it down, asking what genre in specific is my favorite, is alternate histories. I love alternate histories. There's something about them that's a lot of fun. The Harry Turtledove alternate history series are very excellent. Biographies from really solid writers like Ron Chernow are fantastic. Some of the classics I enjoy, like my father, I could read Tolkien any day of the week and just be happy. J.R.R. Tolkien is one of the best authors of all time. I do have books that I almost try always to abstain from, and or writings that I don't care for that you'll never find on my shelf. And that's, for example, William Shakespeare, whom, though I really admire his talent as a writer, I just don't care for it. It's not interesting. I don't know, not for me. Next, James Phillip 25 says, how do you feel about the reduced taxes in the big, beautiful bill? What are some areas receiving reduced taxes and others where some areas are receiving reduced taxes versus others, such as the no taxes on made in America auto loans? Okay. I really like the no taxes on tips thing. I really like the no taxes on overtime. There are a couple of tax reduction things that don't really make sense. American-made auto loans is one that I find a little bit confusing. And I say that in support of the American auto industry in theory. The problem is that if you've ever touched a Ford Bronco, that thing is put together in the most haphazard, loose way possible. Now, maybe they fixed it since I was up at the Michigan Assembly plant in Clinton Township, just north of Detroit last year. But the Ford Bronco is just really poorly put together, and incentivizing poor business and a really shoddy car instead of buying a really well-made Toyota or a Honda, that's kind of a problem. Also, down here in Indiana, we have Honda and Toyota plants. And there's a question as to how much of a vehicle being made in America really guarantees the loan or not. Radio crew, we got to let you head over to commercial break. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. All right, next question that I really do appreciate, probably more than the other. This is from Neilsy, And Nielzy asks if I'm proud of myself for spreading hate at the behest of the Trump administration. So, first of all, I absolutely love getting to do this. I never thought growing up that I would have the privilege of getting to get out here and do broadcasting stuff and podcast and radio and TV and all of that. That's a joy. I think the premise of the question is ridiculous. And the reason I think it's ridiculous is because whenever someone on my side of the political aisle says they do not like something, they are called a hateful, evil, bigoted, terrible, horrible person, even if what is being called out is extremely appropriate to be called out. For example, the entire medical world, except for the American Psychiatric Association, which has a lot of issues, has essentially agreed that transgender hormones, especially in children, adults too, are really, really, really harmful. Really harmful. And that gender-affirming care, I say with a lot of air quotes, does nothing to prevent suicide. Now, when I called that out from a scientific perspective a couple of years ago, I was called every name in the book, some that I learned for the first time. And they were wrong. The idea that empathy is supreme, and if I don't follow along with exactly what you believe, then I'm some type of horrible, hateful person, how about no? And I have no qualms at all mocking those who treat others like complete trash in order to lecture them on a political philosophy or something that they have no idea or understanding of whatsoever, and whose fear-mongering is almost always false. And I have the same argument, by the way, for those over on kind of the right who call everything that they don't like a neocon. So there's a meme that's, I'd say a decade and a half old at this point. And it's a picture of a little golden book. And it's a picture of Adolf Hitler riding a rainbow sled. And the title of the book is Everyone I Don't Like is Hitler, A Child's Guide to Online Political Discussion. And for a long time now, the left has essentially, as we've already heard earlier in the show tonight, has resorted to calling everyone that they don't like an evil, terrible fascist who's going to kill everyone and they're awful and they deserve to die. And one of the reasons we're seeing a lot of political violence right now in this country, actively. And on the right side of the aisle, what you're seeing from some of the, I won't really say the populist circles because it is driven by emotional populism, but it's from a certain crew of influencers, are suggesting that if you don't agree with them on everything, then you are a rhino neocon. And in the same way, the meme is now George Bush riding a sled, saying everyone I don't like is a neocon. And it really just doesn't work. It doesn't work. The idea that you're going to lecture anyone all the time for being super terrible because they don't agree with you on whether or not the United States should strike Fort O. And you say, oh, you're a terrible, evil warmonger who's going to get us into World War III, and then that doesn't happen. I'm just going to level with you. I just don't trust you anymore when it comes to character judgments. I just don't. The same with the left. After they've called, oh, Trump's going to do martial law and women are going to be in the red dresses with the white head thingies on and it's going to be Handmaid's Tale and slavery's back and put you all back in chain. People just don't buy it anymore. We'll be back in just a second. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
The Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Back to the Tony Kinnett Cast, where we are finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel regarding the big, beautiful bill stuff. Not because we do or don't like the big, beautiful bill, because believe it or not, there are stuff some of us are really focused on that we have to get this out of the way to talk about. And one of those guys that has a lot of important things to focus on, especially regarding our nation's troops and veterans, is Mark Lucas, founder and president of Veteran Action. Are you excited to get through this process as I am?
I'm really excited. It's a great victory for President Trump. He deserves all of the credit. The one big, beautiful bill was all the things he talked about on the campaign trail that ultimately delivered him victory. But I'm not going to, give a bunch of attaboys to congressional Republicans. I wish this bill would have gotten done weeks ago, if not months ago, because we have some very important issues to start to refocus on here over the summer.
I think we do. And one of the things that I'm looking forward to are we've talked about this with the mission roll call team, an act that is going to give veterans the opportunity to, instead of forcing them to go to the VA, even if they're very, very far from that VA, giving them the choice to go to local area hospitals, places that are nearby for the kind of treatment and care that we should be giving our guys who served.
Absolutely. I worked with President Trump during his first term to help him pass two of the most historic reforms of the VA. And the first one was the VA Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act. It's quite the mouthful, but it was important because President Trump, when he campaigned all across America in 2016, he had a 10-point plan to help veterans. And one of the first steps was holding bad VA employees accountable. And then the second thing he was able to pass was the Mission Act, which was true choice in veteran health care. But during Joe Biden's time, we've seen that the VA has regressed. And unfortunately, veterans don't have the access to health care that was codified in law. So we are supporting the Veterans Access Act, which would allow a veteran who is under mental health issues or has substance abuse issues, that he does not have to wait for those arbitrary wait times. Because if you're suicidal, you don't have days to wait. You may have hours. So you can be able to be seen by a community healthcare provider.
And again, this is one of the things that makes sense to me in the same way that school choice makes a lot of sense to me. I'm all for having excellent public schools. I'm all for having a phenomenal VA. Those should not even be a question. However, if there is a guy that's in the middle of Idaho or Iowa, or perhaps in the middle of northern central Indiana, not near an interstate or a main road, if there is a situation in which, like you pointed out, hours matter, then access to local resources without losing an arm and a leg to the debt that may accrue, that matters. Again, it should matter more than most kinds of policy, at least in a partisan fashion, to the average American, because for those who sacrificed so much, it seems like a pretty simple ask to make that we would give them a little bit more expanded access than, though we want a good VA, saying you have to go to a VA no matter where you're at.
It's a very simple concept. If you love your VA hospital, you should be able to go there. But if you're not happy with that VA, or if they can't see you in a timely fashion, you should be able just to walk across the street to a private healthcare facility. This is true choice. And you brought up a great point. Parents understand this with school choice. I think most of the American people understand that veterans, they earn this right. They should be able to seen in a timely and effective manner. So allow that money to follow the veteran. And ultimately, if you're happy with the VA hospital, keep on going there. We don't want to stop that. But if you have a severe crisis and you need to be seen today, you should be able to go. And I have this crazy story of a vet who was homeless, who was suicidal, and he tried to get help at the VA and they couldn't see him. And one of my friends said, hey, go to the VA emergency room. They have to see you. And they went and they weren't able to see him. And he literally had a community care provider who had a bed available that night. But the VA said, instead, we will pay for your Uber to take you back to the homeless shelter. And when we have a bed available, we'll call you. Those are the type of things that are happening every day at the VA because these bureaucrats, they're not focused on
That's exactly the word I was thinking of. Yep, took the word right out of my mouth. That's a bureaucrat decision right there. And goodness, I don't mean to interject into the story or your follow through there, but the idea that we would allow bureaucratic have to decisions. Well, my hands are tied, and I guess we really just have to send you back to the shelter. Again, the level of disrespect. I don't care what the guy's MOS was. I don't care how long he served. I want him to be taken care of. And as a conservative, as a limited government conservative, if I'm going to pay money into government programs, that's a place where I want my money to go. That's it. Of all of the programs out there, making sure that the guys who have sacrificed are taken care of in their medical expenses seems like, again, a ridiculously simple ask.
And this is really an ideological problem. Like most of the doctors and the nurses, like those healthcare professionals at the VA, they love what they do. They're really tied to the mission. It's these bureaucrats in Washington and these regional offices that are trying to protect their turf because they see healthcare choice as a threat to their livelihood. So they would rather keep a veteran trapped in a failed system to protect their job and to protect their budget than actually provide good care. And I can tell you that the VA budget has doubled over 10 years. They've grown their staff, they've grown their buildings, their care hasn't improved. And we need to take a hard look at the VA and reform it because we want veterans, especially in rural America, where maybe there's not a whole lot of healthcare choices. We want those veterans to be able to be served very well. And right now, we're just not seeing high quality of care across the board.
Again, so when you're looking at getting the military back on its feet, and I'll say that after the Iraq and Afghanistan war, the kind of Vietnam syndrome that sunk in through that particular muck and mire as well, you not only see the drive to help the recruitment crisis, which now, again, the recruiting goals are being met far earlier, but there's the other side of it too. There's not just the going in, there's the getting out. And that's why we continue to work with organizations here on this show and then, of course, across the network to ensure that we do see a proper amount of focus on reform, not just with the recruitment, not just in boot, not just on station, but once you're out, that you're given the same kind of care and service that would suggest, hey, I'm not throwing away a chunk of my life because when I get out, all of the services are going to be horrible, all of the or hard to reach or bureaucrat infested. And I think that when you're looking at policy, to actually solve the whole problem instead of part of the problem is something that Republicans are starting to do for the first time in a long time, at least in regard to immigration policy we've seen, right? We're seeing from the judicial level down to the executive enforcement level to actually some congressional measures and then the funding behind it. We're seeing this in regard to crime prevention and actually giving law enforcement officers the resources that they need. Do you think that in the next couple of years, we're going to see this kind of reform that you're talking about from the top down all over? Or does this bill that, you were chatting about earlier, is this the first step in doing that? Is it halfway there? Kind of, what's your 30,000 top view there?
Well, veterans are absolutely a priority for President Trump. And I saw that firsthand during his first term. He made those reforms happen.
This is why that suckers and losers line never worked. It never worked because if you've seen Trump around veterans, I mean, the dude's as giddy as a school child in a candy store around vets. He loves talking to them. He spends all of his time. Sorry, I didn't mean to distract you, but the casual ease that one can say it's clear that the Trump administration is focused on veterans both in the first term and now in this term drives all of that silly squibbling away.
Oh, you're absolutely right. If you spend any time with President Trump, I was in the West Wing with him in the Roosevelt Room with a group full of veterans. He loved talking to us, asking a lot of questions. He was a great listener. When he's off camera, behind the scenes, he's always shaking the hands of veterans and law enforcement officials. I mean, he truly has a passion for veterans. And what we saw in the first term was Congress didn't keep up. Back then, it was Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan. Right now, we have different leadership. But I'm going to urge them to prioritize veterans. The rhetoric on the campaign trail doesn't matter. All I care about is action. And we need to pass this bill. We need to support President Trump's agenda of supporting veterans. And we have a bipartisan problem where Congress just does not care about veterans. If that upsets some of my friends who are congressional Republicans, then prove me wrong. Because I saw it in 2017. I'm seeing the same replay here in 2025 that they campaign on veterans, the president supports veterans, and yet Congress cannot pass these bills. And they're also understaffing the DOD and they're understaffing the VA. Veteran Action, we're supporting Matt Lohmeyer's confirmation to be the Undersecretary of the Air Force. And we're supporting Captain Sam Brown, a person who had over 30% of his body burned in a roadside bomb in Afghanistan. He's up to be the Undersecretary of Memorial Affairs over at the VA. And these guys have stalled out in Congress. So once everybody gets back from the 4th of July, we're going to be encouraging lawmakers. And we've recruited over 1,000 activists in less than 3 months to contact their lawmakers over 4,000 times. We just
you mean you recruited them to peacefully contact their legislators instead of burning down major cities? What a crazy thing to recruit activists for.
And these are the constituents in their districts, right? So they're saying, hey, you need to support Matt Lohmeyer. You need to support the Veterans Access Act. And their emails, their phone calls, they're posting at social media. People can go to veteranaction.org, and I've built an action center that you can do all 3 of those actions in less than 5 minutes. And I use the same platform when I was helping Mike Davis at the Article 3 project to confirm all of President Trump's cabinet. Same system. You can call your lawmakers, email them, post them on social media, and it really works.
If you're watching the stream now, check out the Chiron. Look at the beautiful link. You don't have to click on it on the screen because that's going to be in the description below. We just put that there so it gets your attention. Go, click there. Get a hold of your legislator. I know, just like you know, just like we all know, that Americans being involved in the political system now means not just trusting campaign promises and I promise I'm going to get in and free Coca-Cola for everyone, class president election stuff, actually getting things done. Get the coalition together, get these reforms passed because our veterans need it. They need good leadership in positions that actually understand what they've gone through, especially regarding Sam Brown. I followed that story very closely. Get that stuff through. Make this a priority for the summer because it's not going to be one of those things that you regret taking time to invest in the kind of care, the treatment, and then the leadership that will effectuate those changes for those guys. So again, really, really appreciate this. Mark Lucas, founder and president of Veteran Action. Thanks very much for taking a couple of minutes with us here.
Oh, Tony, thank you for having me on.
We'll be back in just a second. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. All right. Well, we don't need an ad read this evening. What we need is just a little bit of the bonus tonus. So again, for those who are just joining us for the first time, perhaps on this beautiful July 3rd, bonus tonus is, on social media, my name is The Tonus. It's a nickname that's stuck from high school. It's not really important. But then, you add a little bit of bonus time when I'm not on the radio side anymore. And, you mix it together, it rhymes, bonus tonus, as was christened by the media and most importantly, the audience of the show. So as for just a bit of bonus tonus, I'd love to talk very, very briefly about why this 4th of July is truly fantastic. And I know we're like Americans. You're supposed to love 4th of July all the time, always, no problem. However, there are a few of us out there that are unfortunately aware that the left is currently screaming, America is never great, and it's awful, and it's terrible, and it's on stolen indigenous land, and especially with the big, beautiful bill, I'm sure that like AOC's post today, on Blue Sky, because if she posted this on Twitter, she would be roasted to above and beyond. She says, I don't think anyone is prepared for what they just did with ICE. And I thought, did Tom Homan make some kind of announcement, or did like Trump issue an executive order on ICE? Now, by the way, I do know that they sent like 70 whole Marines and enough of the crayons to feed them down to Florida to assist in getting the ICE facility set up in Alligator Alcatraz, which, to answer a question, by the way, yes, the Alligator Alcatraz t-shirts are coming. We're working on those designs. We'll have those up soon for those of you that can't live without one. But AOC says, this is not a simple budget increase. So she's upset about the big, beautiful bill. It is an explosion, making ICE bigger than the FBI, the U.S. Bureau of Prisons, the DEA, and other numbers combined. She's very, very upset about this. Oh, the horror. She says, it is setting up to make what's happening now look like child's play. And people are disappearing. Again, I am still looking for one person who is disappearing. Just one. I'm looking everywhere I can find. All of the data so far suggests that if an individual is arrested by ICE, it is documented where they were, where they are, where they're going. Not to mention things like the status of their citizenship, whether or not they overstayed a visa, whether or not there's other crimes on the book for them. This data is available. So again, the fear-mongering isn't going to work. I will say, though, that with the Immigration Customs Enforcement budget, so Ian Bremmer posted this. I'm not sure if it was kind of for a shock value, and it's a bar chart that I don't think I have loaded up for you guys here, at least not this evening, of the world's top defense budgets versus just the amount of money that Congress just voted for Immigration Customs Enforcement. So Switzerland, their annual defense budget is $25 billion. Not bad. Brazil, $26 billion. The Netherlands, $27 billion. Israel, $30.5 billion. Italy, $30.9 billion. Immigration Customs Enforcement's budget will now be annually $37.5 billion. That is, in fact, one of the greatest things I have ever heard in my entire life. I love it. That actually made me want to vote or ask my congressperson, Jefferson Shreve, to vote for the bill even more because it's fantastic. It is wonderful to see the immigration issue in this country, which was passing the economy as the most important issue during the 24 campaign consistently, actually be a priority for the government. And seeing that Trump can actually get things accomplished without big, massive, sweeping laws with all this convoluted algorithmic calculus, if you give him more agents and money, then perhaps we can make sure that individuals who beat their wives, like Kilmar Abrego Garcia with his MS-13 knuckles, are not on the streets. That's a very, very good thing. And so over this 4th of July, a couple of personal thoughts. First of all, we do live in the greatest country on the face of this earth. It is a wonderful privilege to live here in the United States of America. God has been extremely gracious to us. And so if you have a spare moment between now and the end of tomorrow, take a moment to thank God for this fantastic country that we live in. And if you live in a great state, like I do, the great state of Indiana, which someday will stretch from the Appalachians to the Mississippi River soon. But in the meantime, if you live in a really great state, thank God for that as well. And also pray for those of our audience that aren't living in great states. If you're joining us from the metro of Detroit, or from Oregon or Washington State, California, say a prayer for those people in foreign hostile countries. We're praying for you. And if you need anything, we can try to get you out of there. So that said, just a couple of closing notes here before we get to the weekend stuff that we are very, very excited about. Over on the description underneath the show, we do have a link to the channel's Discord. Discord is a large chat room server. And as was pointed out this evening in the live chat during the show, I love watching the live chat. I can see it scrolling up over on the right side. I actually have a whole screen just dedicated to the live chat. I never get to look at it because we're trying to fit so much show stuff into one show. Please join us over on this Discord. Then we can actually chat throughout the day. You say, but Tony, don't you have work to do? Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, hey, I don't know. There's something just about reading some of the messages and, again, you guys sharing stuff with us. I guess over on the membership side of things, if you join our YouTube membership program, then Nick has a couple of things that I did not authorize him to make that he is sharing with our YouTube members, as well as access to like the top news in 10 early. That is unless we have to upload it at 3 a.m. because the House is awake all night voting on a bill. The Alcatraz shirts are coming. And I just can't thank you guys enough for how much fun it is to do this show, to get to be with you guys every evening. There will not be a Top News in 10 tomorrow morning, nor will there be an episode of the Tony Kinnett cast tomorrow evening because it's the 4th of July. It's Independence Day. Oh, fooled you. I got you. We actually are uploading an interview and a little something over on the 4th of July for the Tony Kinnett cast, not for the Top News in 10. Because you've already heard the top news of the day. I guarantee you that... Oh, I said guarantee. That was a stupid thing to say. No, Tony. God willing, there's not going to be any breaking news between now and tomorrow at 5 a.m. Case in point, NBC has reported that Iran is now no longer planning any kind of retaliation against the United States. I beg, I plead, I'm now getting texts. Why would you say that? I love the audience of this show so much. This is fantastic. Guys, have a wonderful Independence Day. Thank God for this country. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. A joy to embody the principles of liberty, of the pursuit of happiness, not the pursuit of justice, though Teachers Union Becky Pringle might say so a little bit differently. Have a wonderful day. We'll be back on Monday. Again, stop in tomorrow. There will be a little something special uploaded just for you on the two Americas, this phenomenal country, and then, well, California. Have a wonderful holiday. Take care. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Take care.